All right, so let's take a deep dive into cannabis real estate.
Sounds good to me.
Innovative industrial properties, or IIPR as most folks know them on the stock market.
Right.
They just had their Q4 2024 earnings call.
Yep.
And it's giving us a fascinating look into what's going on in this industry.
Yeah, it's fast growing, but also volatile right now.
Exactly.
So a lot to unpack there.
They are the leading REIT in this space.
That's right. The leading REIT.
Which means they own and then lease out properties to cannabis operators.
Uh-huh.
So their performance can actually tell us a lot about the health of the whole legal cannabis market.
For sure. I think you can really extrapolate from their results to the market as a whole.
Okay, so let's jump into some of the numbers.
Okay.
First things first, IIPR's total revenue for 2024 came in at $308.5 million.
Okay.
Now, that is actually down slightly from the year before.
Yeah.
Not a massive drop or anything,
Right.
but definitely something worth noting.
Yeah, for sure. Worth looking into why that is.
And it's not just some random blip.
No.
This revenue decrease is actually connected to some of the bigger trends we've been seeing in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, for sure.
IIPR pointing to a few different factors.
Okay.
First, they've sold off or taken back some properties.
Okay.
They've also had to make some adjustments to the rent that they're charging.
Right.
And then there's the issue of some tenants just not paying their rent on time.
Ooh, that's never good.
Yeah, delinquent tenants.
Yeah. What's going on with that?
So what's the story there?
Well, it's not exactly unheard of, in an industry that's still kind of figuring things out as it goes.
Right.
But IIPR did actually highlight a big win in this area.
Okay.
They managed to work things out with a major tenant called PharmaCann,
Okay.
who had actually defaulted on their rent payments.
Oh, wow.
But the good news is that PharmaCann is now back on track. They're paying rent on most of their leases.
Oh, good.
And they've also agreed to some additional financial commitments and some changes to their policies.
Okay.
All to try and make sure this doesn't happen again.
So they're putting some safeguards in place.
Exactly, trying to prevent those future issues.
Okay, so that's good news.
Yeah, definitely a positive development.
But it does make you wonder, are other tenants having problems?
Yeah.
And how is IIPR dealing with that potential risk?
Well, it's a really good question, and actually they addressed this directly on the call.
They did.
Yeah, they really emphasize that they are keeping a very close eye on the financials of all their tenants.
Okay.
And they're not afraid to enforce those lease agreements if they have to.
Right.
They made it clear that they want to support their tenants,
Uh-huh.
but they're also going to be firm about protecting their own investments.
Right. They've got to walk that line.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
They want to be good partners to the tenants,
Yeah,
but they also have a responsibility to their shareholders.
absolutely. You can't forget about the shareholders.
So it's a tough balancing act.
It really is. And I think that's what makes IIPR's approach so interesting.
Yeah.
They're trying to navigate this tricky situation, supporting their tenants while also making sure they're financially stable themselves.
Right. And all of this is happening while the legal cannabis market is facing some serious challenges.
Yeah, there are definitely some headwinds out there.
Like what? Fill me in.
Well, think about it. We've got a bit of a shaky economy right now.
Right.
There's still so much uncertainty about federal regulations.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got the elephant in the room,
Which is,
the illicit market.
oh, yeah. Can't forget about that.
All these factors, they're putting pressure on those legal cannabis businesses.
So it's a tough environment to operate in.
It really is.
So how is IIPR staying optimistic with all of that going on?
Well, they're seeing what they called green shoots.
Green shoots.
Yeah, little signs of growth and opportunity that
Yep.
suggest the industry is still heading in the right direction.
Okay, so what are some of those green shoots?
Well, for one thing, industry analysts are predicting that U.S. cannabis sales are going to grow by about 10% in 2025.
Wow.
Yeah, reaching a total of $32.4 billion.
That's a lot of green.
It's a lot of potential revenue.
So what's driving that growth?
Well, part of it is definitely more people embracing cannabis,
Okay.
but there are also some pretty big changes happening on the legal front.
Like what?
Well, you've got several states, including some potentially massive markets
Oh.
like Pennsylvania and Florida.
Uh-huh.
They're seriously considering expanding legalization,
Wow.
which could create a whole new wave of opportunities for companies like IIPR.
So they're really betting on the future of legalization.
Yeah, even with all the uncertainty right now.
That's a pretty bold move.
It is, but it's not just blind faith either.
Okay.
They highlighted how well things have been going in states like New York and Ohio,
Right.
where adult use sales have really taken off since legalization.
Yeah.
those success stories, they really show the potential for continued growth as more states get on board.
So they're seeing that it can work.
Exactly. And they're thinking, hey, if it worked there, it can work other places too.
Makes sense.
And they're not just talking the talk. Oh?
They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Okay. How so?
They invested over $70 million in 5 new properties in 2024.
Wow.
Plus, they've already got another acquisition lined up for 2025.
So they're not slowing down?
Not at all. They're full steam ahead.
But are they being strategic about it?
Yeah, they were very clear about that.
Okay.
They're not just buying up any property they can get their hands on.
Right.
They're being very selective and disciplined about it.
So what are they looking for in a property?
They're focused on high-quality assets
Okay.
in markets that have really strong growth potential.
Right.
It's not about chasing quick profits.
Mm-hmm.
It's about building a portfolio for the long term.
And do they have the resources to do that?
Oh, yeah, they're in a great position to do that.
Okay.
They've got a strong balance sheet, over $235 million in liquidity,
Wow.
which gives them a lot of flexibility to move quickly when they see an opportunity they like.
That's smart to have that cash on hand.
Oh, yeah, cash is key. But, we can't talk about cannabis without addressing the big question.
The big one.
What's going to happen with federal reform?
Ah, yes, the million-dollar question.
And unfortunately, no easy answers right now.
It's a really complex situation.
So break it down for me. What's the latest?
Well, the push to reschedule cannabis
Okay.
to get it out of that really restrictive Schedule I drug category,
Right.
it seems to have hit a roadblock.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a key hearing on the issue was recently canceled.
Uh-oh.
So the whole process is kind of in limbo right now.
So is federal reform dead in the water?
Well, not necessarily. It's complicated.
Okay.
President Trump has said he supports cannabis reform in the past.
Yes.
He's even hinted at potential legalization in Florida.
Right.
But some of his recent appointments to key agencies have kind of thrown a wrench in things.
Okay.
For example, the new DEA administrator is very openly opposed to legalization.
So it's kind of a tug of war
It really is.
between what the president's saying and what the people he's appointed are doing.
Exactly. It's creating a lot of uncertainty.
So where does IIPR stand on all this?
Well, they didn't shy away from the topic on the call.
Okay.
They made it clear that they believe federal reform, including things like safer banking laws,
Right.
is absolutely crucial for the long-term growth of the industry.
That makes sense because right now most cannabis businesses are basically shut out of traditional banking.
Yeah, it's a huge problem for them.
Creates all sorts of headaches.
Exactly. It
Right.
limits their access to capital,
Uh-huh.
makes everyday operations so much harder,
Right.
and it exposes them to unnecessary risks.
Oh, so federal reform would be a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. It would unlock so much investment
Yeah.
and legitimacy for the industry.
So IIPR is basically saying, hey, we can handle the uncertainty for now,
Yeah.
but federal reform would be a total game changer.
Exactly. They're ready for it when it happens.
And in the meantime,
Yeah.
they're also exploring what they called strategic investments.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, something beyond their typical property acquisitions.
So what does that mean?
Any clues on what those might be?
They were pretty tight-lipped about the details,
Okay.
but they did hint that it could involve finding new ways to leverage their financial strength within the cannabis space.
Okay, so could we see them branching out into other areas?
That's definitely possible.
Like maybe financing for smaller businesses?
Yeah.
Or even getting involved in product development?
I wouldn't rule anything out.
Wow.
They've got a reputation for being innovative and forward-thinking.
Uh-huh.
So these strategic investments could be a way for them to diversify their revenue streams.
Right.
And really cement their position as the leader in the cannabis space.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Revenue dips, tenant troubles, growth projections,
Yep.
and of course the big question mark of federal reform.
The one that's always hanging over everything.
So it's clear that the cannabis industry is still in a very dynamic phase,
Yeah, it's a wild ride.
full of both risks and opportunities.
You said,
I think what's really interesting to me is how IIPR is balancing caution with optimism.
yeah.
They're clearly aware of all the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
but they also seem genuinely confident about the long-term potential.
They do. They're taking a very strategic approach,
Uh-huh.
carefully managing those relationships with their tenants
Yeah.
and making really selective investments in assets that they believe will be successful in the long run.
They're playing the long game,
They are.
and that's what makes them such an interesting company to watch.
Absolutely. You never know what they're going to do next.
They're like the rebels of the REIT world.
I like that.
Okay, so now for the moment you've all been waiting for.
Here we go.
It's time for our This Is Not Financial Advice segment,
All right, buckle up, everybody.
where we take everything we've learned
Yeah.
and try to come up with a completely wild, but maybe not so crazy trade idea.
The outrageous but plausible.
Exactly.
All right, let's hear it.
So, as always, a disclaimer, this is purely hypothetical. For entertainment purposes only.
Always.
We are not financial advisors.
Not even close.
Do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Absolutely. Make sure you do your homework.
Okay, so if I were a betting person,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not, because this is not financial advice,
Right. Wink, wink.
I would be keeping a very close eye on those strategic investments that IIPR mentioned.
Oh, interesting.
I think that's where the real action is going to be.
Why do you say that?
Well, just imagine if they play their cards right
Okay.
and find some truly game-changing way to tap into this cannabis market.
Right?
We could be looking at explosive growth.
That's a bold prediction.
It is.
But I gotta admit, it's not totally out there.
Right.
IIPR has a track record of making smart moves, staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
So if they can leverage their expertise and their financial strength
Right.
to capitalize on these emerging trends in the cannabis space, the potential upside could be huge.
And let's not forget, they're already delivering consistent returns to shareholders through dividends.
That's right.
They've increased their annual dividend every single year since they went public back in 2016.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's a track record that speaks for itself.
It really does. Consistency is key.
So is this the start of something big for IIPR?
Who knows?
Only time will tell.
That's the truth.
But it's definitely a story worth watching.
For sure, they're a company to keep on your radar.
They're a company with a solid foundation,
Yep.
a clear vision,
Uh-huh.
and the guts to make bold moves.
Absolutely. That's a recipe for success in any industry.
Especially one as fast-paced and ever-changing as cannabis.
You got that right.
So, dear listener,
Yes.
if you're interested in the cannabis industry,
Okay.
but maybe you're not quite ready to bet on individual growers or dispensaries,
Yeah.
IIPR might be a good option to consider.
Interesting take.
They offer a way to tap into the industry's growth potential
Right.
while also enjoying the relative stability of real estate.
And that dividend history.
And that dividend history, can't forget that.
Definitely a plus.
But remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Right.
To really understand IIPR's potential, you need to do your own deep dive.
Absolutely.
Read their filings, listen to the full earnings call, and stay informed about all the trends impacting the cannabis industry.
Knowledge is power, my friend.
It really is, especially in the world of investing.
Couldn't agree more.
So keep learning, keep exploring,
Yep.
and maybe you'll uncover your own outrageous but plausible trade idea.
Just don't blame us if it doesn't work out.
Exactly.
We're just two curious minds here.
Sharing our thoughts and having a little fun along the way.
That's what it's all about.
And that's what the deep dive is all about.
Cheers to that.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the world of cannabis real estate.
Anytime.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's sure to spark your curiosity.
Wait.
Until then, keep those brains buzzing.
Stay curious, my friend. You know, it's easy to get caught up in all the headlines about tenant troubles and all that market volatility. But we shouldn't forget that IIPR is still bringing in a good amount of cash.
Yeah, remind me about their financials. How did they actually perform in 2024?
Well, even with all the headwinds we've been talking about.
Yeah.
They managed to pull in over $255 million in cash flow from operations last year.
Wow, that's impressive.
It really is.
Especially when you think about the challenges some of their tenants are facing.
Right.
It says a lot about how strong their business model is
It does.
and how well they manage their portfolio.
Absolutely couldn't agree more.
And that cash isn't just sitting around doing nothing.
No way.
IIPR has a really solid track record of returning value to shareholders through dividends.
They do.
In 2024 alone, they paid out over $210 million in dividends to their investors. And they've increased their annual dividend every single year since they went public back in 2016.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a level of consistency that a lot of investors look for.
Right, especially if they're looking for a steady stream of income.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the growth prospects, the financials.
Right.
What's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean for IIPR's future?
I think the main thing is that IIPR is showing that they're resilient in a market that's still kind of finding its way.
Yeah.
They're not immune to the challenges out there,
Right.
but they are handling them strategically and pretty effectively.
It's like they're sailing a ship through a storm.
Ooh, I like that.
They know there are rough waters ahead, but they're holding steady and keeping their eyes on the horizon.
I love that analogy. And it's clear they're not just reacting to whatever's happening around them.
Right.
They're actively shaping their own destiny.
Okay.
They're making smart investments, building those relationships with their tenants, and they're actually pushing for changes that will benefit the whole industry.
So they're looking at the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
It's not just about making a quick buck for them.
Nope. They're in it for the long haul.
And it seems like they're building a legacy while they're at it.
You know, that's an interesting thought. Could IIPR actually be more than just a company?
Okay, I'm listening.
Could they actually be setting the standard for the whole cannabis industry?
Ooh, I like where you're going with this.
Think about it. If IIPR continues to thrive, it sends a really strong signal to investors and to policymakers that the cannabis industry is growing up, becoming more stable,
Right.
and becoming a real force in the American economy.
Yeah, there'll be a huge shift in how people see the industry.
It would.
It's almost like they're carrying the torch for everyone else.
Yeah.
Showing the world that cannabis businesses can be successful,
Right.
responsible, and profitable.
Exactly. Their success could actually help pave the way for wider acceptance.
Yeah.
And eventually federal legalization.
It's definitely a fascinating story to watch unfold.
It really is. Okay, are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah. Hit me with it.
It's time to shift gears and dive into our This Is Not Financial Advice segment.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh.
I've got a wild trade idea brewing.
All right, I can't wait to hear this. But remember, everyone, this is purely hypothetical.
Always.
Just for fun.
Of course.
We are not financial advisors. Do your own research before you make any investment decisions.
Absolutely. Okay, so if I were to place a bet, and again, I'm not, because this is not financial advice.
Right, wait.
I'd say keep a close eye on IIPR's expansion into new markets.
Okay.
Specifically those that are poised for explosive growth.
Interesting, like where?
Think Pennsylvania, Florida, places like that.
Right, the high growth markets.
Exactly. Imagine if IIPR gets in on the ground floor of those markets.
Okay.
Secures some prime real estate and locks in deals with some top-tier cannabis operators.
I see where you're going with this.
Before everyone else jumps on the bandwagon.
They could corner the market in these new regions. A huge first-mover advantage.
Exactly. They could become the go-to real estate partner for cannabis businesses in those areas.
Which could really give them a leg up on the competition.
And potentially send their stock price soaring.
That's a bold move, though.
It is.
Early-stage markets can be unpredictable.
That's true.
Legalization efforts could stall.
Yeah.
Demand might not grow as fast as people think.
Those are definitely risks.
But IIPR has a good track record.
They do.
Of identifying promising markets and making smart investments.
They're not just throwing darts at a map.
Nope. They do their homework.
They're making calculated bets.
And they're good negotiators.
Right.
They know how to get favorable deals. And they build strong relationships with their tenants.
Yeah, which is so important, especially when you're dealing with a new market.
It is. So while this is all hypothetical,
of course,
and again, not financial advice.
Never.
If I were to make a bold prediction,
drumroll, please,
I'd say IIPR's strategic expansion into these high-growth markets could really unlock their next level of success.
I think so, too.
Potentially turning them into a real cannabis real estate powerhouse.
That's the dream.
It's a compelling argument.
It is, and that's what makes investing so exciting.
It is. It's all about finding those hidden gems.
Right.
Those companies that are ready to shake things up.
Disrupt the status quo.
And create the future.
And I think IPR has the potential to be one of those companies.
They really do. They're already a leader in this space.
Yeah.
But they're not stopping there.
Always pushing forward.
They're constantly innovating, adapting, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in this industry.
And that's why we're keeping such a close eye on them.
Absolutely.
They're not afraid to challenge conventional thinking.
Nope. They're the rebels of the REIT world.
I love that. Before we get too carried away with all our speculative fantasies,
let's bring it back down to earth.
And remind everyone,
this is not financial advice.
Do your own research.
Consult with a financial professional.
And never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But hey,
yeah,
it's fun to speculate a little.
It is. It helps us stretch our imaginations and consider things we might not have thought of otherwise.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe one of our wild predictions will actually come true.
Stranger things have happened.
They really have. Now, before we wrap up this whole deep dive, I think we should talk a bit more about IIPR's approach to those tenant relationships.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've talked about the challenges,
Mhm.
but we haven't really gotten into the specifics of how they're handling those risks
Right.
and how they're building those strong partnerships with their tenants.
It's a critical part of their business.
It is.
Their success really depends on their tenants being successful.
It's a two-way street.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's take a closer look at how IIPR manages their tenants.
Oh, okay.
What's their strategy? What can we learn from them?
Sounds good to me. Let's go back to that PharmaCann situation for a second.
Okay.
It's a perfect example of how IIPR handles tenant risk.
How so?
They didn't just wait around for PharmaCann to figure things out on their own.
Right.
They took action.
They filed those default notices.
Yep.
Started those eviction proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
They were serious.
They made it crystal clear they were protecting their interests.
No messing around.
But here's the thing. They were also willing to work with PharmaCann to find a solution
Right.
that benefited both sides.
It wasn't about punishing PharmaCann.
No.
It was about getting them back on track.
Exactly.
Helping them become a successful tenant again.
They found that balance between firmness and flexibility.
Right.
They held PharmaCann accountable, but they also recognized that sometimes you need to collaborate.
It shows that even in the business world, relationships are important.
Absolutely. IIPR understands that their tenants aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right.
They're people.
They're running businesses.
Yeah, facing their own unique challenges and opportunities.
So IIPR is tough,
They are.
but they're also willing to be partners.
And problem solvers.
Exactly. That's a key takeaway.
It is IIPR's approach to their tenants is a mix of good business sense and genuine empathy.
I like that.
They're tough negotiators, but they also get that a win-win situation is best for everyone.
Makes them seem like a company that really cares about its tenants.
Right.
Not just trying to get every last dollar out of them.
You got it. And that approach creates trust and loyalty,
Yeah.
which are so important in any business relationship.
Absolutely. Especially in a volatile industry like cannabis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things they do to build these strong relationships?
Yeah, what's their secret?
Well, based on what they said on the earnings call and their past actions, there are a few things that stand out.
All right, tell me more.
All right, so we're wrapping up our deep dive into IIPR.
It's been a wild ride.
It has lots of twists and turns in this story.
So before we go, let's recap the key takeaways for our listeners.
Okay, good idea.
First off, IIPR is definitely facing some headwinds.
Yeah, they are.
Mainly because of the economy and those tenant delinquencies we talked about.
Right, that whole PharmaCann situation was pretty intense.
It was. But it also showed us that IIPR can handle these tough situations.
Yeah, they can.
And they're not afraid to protect their interest?
Absolutely. They took action, but they also showed they were willing to work things out.
Exactly. Find a solution that worked for everyone.
It's a good reminder that sometimes you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
I like that.
So true.
A little kindness can go a long way.
Okay, so despite the challenges, IIPR is still optimistic about the cannabis industry.
They are. They see a lot of potential for long-term growth.
Those green shoots you talked about earlier?
Yeah.
New markets opening up, increasing demand, and the possibility of federal reform?
All pointing to a bright future.
They're not just waiting around either.
No, they're not. They're actively investing in properties that they think will do well in the future.
Smart move.
It's like they're not just riding the wave, they're creating the wave.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
And that's what makes them so fascinating to follow.
Yeah, they're a real force in this industry.
So for our listeners who are interested in cannabis, but maybe a little hesitant about investing in specific companies,
Okay.
IIPR might be worth checking out.
They offer a way to get in on the growth,
Yeah.
but with the stability of real estate.
And a good track record of returns.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe our wild trade idea about those high growth markets will actually pan out.
Maybe, just maybe.
But as always, this is not financial advice.
Never.
Do your research and be smart with your money.
Words of wisdom. But it's fun to speculate a little, right?
It
Keeps things interesting.
helps us think outside the box,
That's what the deep dive is all about.
exploring new ideas, challenging assumptions, and having some fun while we're at it.
Exactly.
So until next time, keep those brains buzzing, and remember, the future is green.
And hopefully profitable.
See you next time.